The storm rolled over the plains like an old grudge finally catching up. Thunder cracked low and mean as the wind peeled through the slats of the barn, carrying the scent of something more than wet hay. Inside, the lantern's flame barely held on. The Baron, boots caked in drying mud, shoved the door open with one shoulder and raised the shotgun. He wasn't expecting silence. What he saw in the straw near the far stall made him freeze. A girl, no, a woman, curled tight around her swollen belly, her breath shallow like it cost her something. Dirt smeared her cheeks, her clothes torn. Skin stretched pale over starved bone. For a long moment, neither moved. Only the rain spoke, tapping the tin roof in angry rhythm. He lowered the barrel. Her eyes tracked him like a wounded doe, cornered by something worse than wolves. But she didn't speak, didn't beg, just shivered in silence. He tossed his coat over her without a word and dropped to one knee, checking her wrist. Pulse. Barely. She flinched when he touched her but didn't pull away. Her mouth opened. Cracked lips forming no sound. Bread came first, cold, hard but real. She took it with shaking fingers, chewing slow like each bite might vanish. He poured her water from a flask, watched her drink it down in 2 gulps, then retch quietly beside herself. She passed out not long after. The Baron built the fire himself, splitting damp wood with a practiced hand, fingers raw and calloused. He set it close to her without letting the flame lick her too tight. The barn glowed gold for the first time in years. The wind shifted. He didn't sleep, just leaned against a post, shotgun beside him, eyes fixed on her like she might vanish if he blinked. Dawn painted the frost silver. The woman stirred beneath, the blanket now tucked around her, her eyes opened slow, full of suspicion. He handed her a cup of black coffee without asking. She didn't thank him. "You got a name?" he asked. Silence. "You'll need one." Her lips twitched. "Mira." He nodded once. "You'll keep." Outside, the land was waking. Cows bellowed in the distance. The air still carried that old bitterness, but for a moment, the barn felt like it belonged to something human. He hitched the mule before noon and rode into town. No one looked surprised to see him. Folks just shifted like chairs on a porch. When weather turned, the preacher had a gut like he swallowed judgment whole. Said nothing when the Baron paid in silver coin and told him there'd be a wedding come sundown. No church, no guests, just a name and a vow. Mira didn't wear white. She wore the same dress he found her in, washed and stitched at the seams. The preacher read fast. The Baron answered clear. Mira barely whispered her vow, but the words held. When the preacher left, the Baron walked to the stable without glancing back. He slept on the hay. The barn stayed warm. On the 3rd night, the hawk came. One wing crooked bad, feathers torn like it fought something it couldn't beat. It landed on the post outside the chicken coop and watched the house like it had business there. The Baron approached it slow, fed it scraps, talked to it like it might talk back. He never tried to touch it, just sat near it each morning, watching it blink back at him like they shared some private grief. Mira didn't ask questions. She moved slow, around the ranch, carrying water, peeling potatoes, watching the hills. Her belly was heavy now, ready. Some nights she stood in the doorway and stared into the dark, like waiting for something to come. The Baron didn't pry. He had a way of being still, like a tree that knew storms but didn't break for them. She noticed that. The old revolver stayed buried near the well, just in case. The preacher's wife came by once, offering blankets and sugar. Mira refused, politely but firm. The Baron said nothing. One morning she was gone. The blanket lay folded on the chair. The fire was out. He found her out by the barn, clutching her stomach, doubled over in the cold dirt. She didn't scream, just groaned low, deep, like something old inside her wanted out. He carried her in his arms, the door banging behind them. Laid her down on the bed, hands rough but careful. He boiled water, laid out what rags he had. The baby came fast and violent. Blood spilled like it had somewhere to be. Mira's face twisted in pain, sweat pouring, teeth clenched so tight she chipped one. She didn't call for help, didn't beg, just bore it like punishment. The child came into the world silent. The Baron held the small, slick body in both hands. Blue. Still. Then a sound, wet, weak but sound. Crying. He breathed, whispered something into the child's ear. Something only she would know. He offered the baby to Mira. She turned her face away. "No," she said. "She's yours," he told her. "She's what they'll chase. What I carried." The Baron stood, jaw set hard. "She's what you survived for." Mira didn't answer. That night, he named the baby Hope. He didn't ask for permission. Hope slept in a box lined with wool near the hearth. Mira stared at her, with wide, hollow eyes like trying to remember why she should care. Outside, the hawk screamed into the wind. Morning came grey. The Baron chopped wood like always, but the air had changed. Something in it sharp, expectant. Tracks in the mud didn't match his boots. He followed them past the fence. Someone had been watching. A horse had waited there, still and silent in the dark. He didn't mention it to Mira, but she already knew. When she held the baby that evening, her hands shook. "If they come," she said, "don't let them take her." "I won't. Promise. Me. Not even if it means killing." He looked her in the eyes then, really looked. "I've buried worse men for less." That night, the barn stayed lit, and somewhere out beyond the hills, a man lit a cigarette with hands that didn't shake. Watching the house, waiting. The town didn't want her. Not when they saw the pale stranger beside the Baron's wagon. Not when she stepped down barefoot, with her belly full and hands clenched like she expected a fight. The gossip hit faster than the dust off the wheels. Walked her to the preacher's shack, a small square thing with warped floors and a dry Bible on the table. The preacher asked no questions. His eyes flicked once to her stomach, then to the coin the Baron laid flat and cold on the wood. "No ring," he muttered. "No time," the Baron replied. The words were few, the ceremony shorter. She whispered, her name like it might hurt to say it too loud, "Mira." And when the preacher asked her if she took the man as husband, she nodded once. No flowers, no blessing. Just silence thick enough to choke on. By sunset, they were back on the ranch. She stepped into the cabin like someone entering another trap. Her fingers grazed the window ledge, the wooden frame of the cot, the rough blanket folded neat on the chair. He lit the fire, said nothing. She sat down slow, spine straight, jaw tight. When he stepped outside, she locked the door behind him. He didn't knock. The first 3 nights passed quiet. He slept in the barn again, same as before. He spoke to the hawk more than her. It ate from the fence post now. Broken wing or not, it hadn't flown away. Neither had she. She peeled potatoes at dawn, fetched water before sunbreak. Her walk was slow but steady. She moved like someone who knew how to disappear in a crowd and survive without kindness. He watched her through the dust-glazed window while splitting wood. She didn't cry, didn't speak unless she had to. But she watched the baby's box more and more, just looked, never touched. One morning, she caught him watching and said, "She doesn't need me. She's breathing, ain't she?" Mira looked down. "That's not the same as living." The Baron said nothing, just tossed another log on the pile and kept swinging. That week, they went to town for supplies. Folks stared. The girl behind the counter refused to hand Mira the sugar directly, dropped it on the table like poison. Outside, a group of men on the porch watched them too long. One spat in the dirt and muttered. Baron finally snapped. Took in a whore, and calls it a wife. The Baron didn't flinch, but he looked. Mira heard. Didn't react, but her shoulders set harder than stone. On the ride back, she didn't speak. That night, she stood in the doorway again, arms folded under the swell of her belly. Her voice was steady. You think she's mine? He was sitting by the fire, sharpening the old hunting knife. She is. She's theirs, she said. From before I ran. He didn't turn around, just kept the knife dragging across the whetstone. She's here now, he said. She's yours if you want her. And if I don't? Then she's mine. The hawk watched from the beam above. Didn't blink. Later, Mira reached for the baby in the dark. Didn't pick her up. Just laid a hand on the wool blanket. The baby stirred but didn't cry. Mira stayed there until dawn. The next day she cut her hand on the water pump. Deep slice across the palm. Blood spilled onto the dust. The Baron wrapped it in cloth, tied it tight, said, "Pain's proof you ain't dead yet." She looked up. That what you believe? Only thing that's never lied to me. By the time the wound closed, the sky had changed. Summer's teeth started to show. The ground cracked. Wind came dry, cutting hard through the valley. He built a shade roof over the coop, while she sat near the well, watching the trail that led east. On the 12th day after the wedding, Mira asked where his wife was buried. He didn't answer right away. Just pointed to the hill behind the barn. She die here? No, he said. But she wanted to. That night, Mira lit the fire herself. Cooked something he didn't recognize, thin soup with wild onion and a pinch of something bitter. He ate it anyway. Said it tasted like honesty. She almost smiled. Then came the man on the ridge. He was just a shape at first, a silhouette on the horizon during sunset, gone by the time the Baron turned. But the horse prints were there, fresh, deep, riding west to east, not the other way. Mira saw them too. She didn't ask who, she already knew. That evening she spoke soft as the fire cracked. I walked for 3 days after I left, slept under brush. Drank river mud, wasn't running toward anything, just running. He nodded. You find anything out here worth stopping for? He looked at her. At the baby asleep in the box. At the hawk still watching from the rafters. Maybe, he said. Maybe I ain't dead yet either. The next morning Mira wore boots. Not good ones, but stitched from old scraps. She walked with more weight now. Cut onions without crying. Fed the chickens. She wasn't trying to stay hidden anymore. Indway, town. The whispers shifted. The sheriff stepped outside the office when the Baron passed. Didn't speak. Just watched him like measuring his back. That afternoon, the Baron dug up the revolver from beside the well. Cleaned it with oil and a torn rag. Mira didn't ask why. At dusk, she held the baby for the first time without flinching. Her name? She asked. Hope. She didn't cry for 3 days. Neither did I. The hawk flew that night. Not far, but far enough to land on the cabin's roof. It screamed into the sky once, and Mira looked up like she understood it. Though next morning the Baron found a note nailed to his fence. No signature. Just a sketch of Mira's face drawn in fine ink. Folded beside it was a silver coin and one word. Thief. He burned the note in silence. Then he fixed the latch on the door. Secured the shutters. Checked the rifle under the bed. When Mira came back from the well, he just said, "They know." She stared at the baby. Then it's already too late. The Baron shook his head. Not yet. The scream cut through the cold like a blade. Not loud, not wild, just sharp and low, the sound of something snapping from the inside. The Baron dropped the kettle where it was. By the time he pushed open the cabin door, Mira was on her knees, by the cot, fingers buried in the blanket, her back arching in rhythm with pain. The baby was coming. He didn't speak. He moved. Rags from the trunk. The boiled water. A rusted knife. Whatever was clean enough or sharp enough to matter. Mira clawed at the floorboards, sweat slick on her brow, jaw locked like she'd been shot and didn't want to show it. She bled. Too much. The birth came fast and angry, her breath catching on every push. There was no crying, not from her, not from the child. Just the steady beat of silence and the hiss of steam as water spilled near the fire. When the baby finally came, slick and pale, the Baron held her with hands that had once twisted the necks of coyotes. He turned her, checked the cord, the color, waited. No sound. Mira was still slumped, unmoving. Her face was white as bone, but her eyes were open, watching him. Then the baby gasped. It was a short sound, like a hiccup of life, but it was enough. The Baron held her close, rubbed her back, whispered something not meant for anyone else. When he offered the child to Mira, she didn't move. "She's not mine," she said. "She came out of you. She came from them." He didn't press it. He laid the baby in the box, wrapped in wool, lit another log in the fire. The kettle still boiled in the corner. Mira drifted between sleep and somewhere darker. Every few hours, she flinched like someone was reaching for her. He fed the baby with goat milk, small drops on a cloth. She took it without protest. At dawn, Mira sat up, didn't ask for the child, just stared into the flames. "Don't name her," she said. The Baron looked up from the stool. "She don't deserve a name." His voice came quiet. "No child's ever deserved not to be named." She didn't answer. That night, he stepped outside and dug a fresh hole. Not for a grave, just something deep enough to hide steel. He placed the revolver inside, wrapped in oiled cloth, buried it beneath stone. Hope cried once, a short whimper that broke the silence of midnight. Mira covered her ears. The next day, Mira sat near the barn with her feet in the dirt. The baby lay beside her, untouched. She stared off into the distance like she was counting the time she had left. "Why'd you really take me in?" she asked. The Baron was fixing the fence post. He didn't look up, didn't find a reason not to. She scoffed, but there was no heat in it. "That's not an answer." He stood, wiped his hands. "You were dying in my barn. I've seen enough dead things." She nodded, like that made more sense than it should have. "You bury all the things. You find dying, only the ones that don't fight." That night she fed Hope for the first time, sat on the edge of the cot, stiff, uncomfortable, but present. The baby squirmed against her chest. Mira winced. "She takes too much," she muttered. "She's supposed to. I'm not ready. No one ever is." The wind picked up, brushing against the cabin with a dry rattle. The hawk cried out once from the ridge beam. Mira flinched. The next morning they found the footprints. Boot tracks. 4 pairs. Coming up from the south fence. Never approached the cabin, just circled wide. Watching. The Baron didn't say a word. Just followed them for a mile, past the trees into the low hills. Found a patch of grass with a single cigarette still warm. He came back different. No panic, no anger, just a kind of quiet that filled the space around him like cold water. Mira saw it. "They're close," she said. He nodded. 2 days, maybe. Less. "What do they want?" He looked toward the baby. "What they left behind." She wrapped Hope tighter in the cloth. Her hands didn't shake anymore. That night, she told him everything. She'd been bought. Not married. Not taken. Bought. A rail magnate from the east had wanted something he could break. She'd lasted 5 months before she slit his throat. With a letter opener and ran barefoot into the cold. The child was his, or one of his men's. She didn't know, didn't care. "I didn't run to live," she said. "I ran to end it somewhere quiet." The Baron nodded. You ran to survive. No. You find something worth living for, you survive. Otherwise, you're just crawling. She didn't ask for forgiveness, didn't need it. He built a new gate that morning, reinforced the hinges, pulled the rifle from behind the hearth and cleaned it while the coffee boiled. Mira stayed by the child. Every time Hope cried, she came faster. In town, the sheriff asked too many questions. Said men had come through asking about a woman matching Mira's description. One wore a gold ring with railroad sigils. They offer a bounty? The Baron asked. The sheriff didn't blink. Didn't say, but they asked if you were the type to marry strangers. And what'd you tell him? I told him you don't talk much. The Baron nodded. Keep saying that. Back home, Mira was waiting on the porch, Hope in her arms. They came by the trail, she said. Didn't stop. Yet. That night, Mira sang something low to the baby. A tune with no words. The Baron didn't recognize it, but it clung to the air like smoke. She laid the baby down, turned to him. If they come for her, you run. You think I will? I think you've already died once. Don't make her pay for it. He met her eyes. She's the only thing left that don't owe me a debt. They sat together until the fire died low. In the dark, the hawk left its perch, flew east, fast, low, without sound, and far beyond the hills, torchlight moved like slow stars on the black horizon. The first rider didn't knock. He stood at the edge of the property just past sunrise, clean boots planted firm, black hat casting a long shadow. Behind him, two others waited on horses too polished for cattlemen. Their silence wasn't polite. It was practiced. The Baron stepped out holding a coffee tin, no gun in sight. His coat hung loose, but his shoulders were squared like they'd carried worse. You, Baron? He didn't answer. We're looking for a woman. Stole something. That wasn't hers. Left a man dying in his own parlor. Sound familiar? Still no reply. She's here, the rider said. We saw the tracks. Town ain't big enough to lie for her. The Baron sipped his coffee, then spat into the dirt. You get to your point, or just like hearing your own voice? The man smiled like he was used to people folding faster than this. She's a killer, he said. And that baby? Could be evidence. Could be leverage. Either way, she comes with us. The Baron let the silence stretch, long enough to feel like a warning. Then he said, no. Wasn't a request. Neither was my answer. The rider chuckled, tipped his hat like the matter was settled. We'll be back with a badge, then it won't be a question. They turned without another word. Hooves clicked like pistol hammers. Mira watched from the window the whole time, lips pressed tight, arms wrapped around Hope. When the horses disappeared behind the ridge, she walked out slow, barefoot, dust clinging to her skin. You didn't ask what I did, she said. I already know. You don't. I know you ran. I know they followed. The rest don't matter. She stared at him. You'll die for something that isn't yours. He looked past her, to the hill where he buried names no one remembered. Anymore, I've died for less. The day ran long after that. The Baron sharpened blades, fixed the back gate, pulled the shotgun from the rafters and cleaned it piece by piece, oiling it like a ritual. Mira packed bags, quietly, methodically, diapers, cloth, bread. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. But she laid her hand on his arm once, didn't say a word, didn't need to. When night came, it was loud with insects and dry wind. Hope fussed in the corner, too warm to sleep. The hawk was gone. They'll come at night, Mira said. Probably. They'll come heavy. I'd expect nothing less. She walked to the fireplace and stared at the ash. I don't want you to kill for me. He stood. I'm not. She turned. Then for who? He didn't answer. At dawn they came back. 3 riders, 2 on foot, all of them armed. 1 carried. Papers in a leather folder. The one from yesterday road front, teeth bared in a grin too calm to be clean. You can read? The Baron nodded. He handed over the folder. Warrant. Signed and sealed. She's a fugitive. You harbor her. You're a criminal. The Baron didn't look at the paper. He let it fall to the dirt. The man grinned wider. So that's how this is gonna go. That's how it already went. Where is she? Gone. He lied without blinking. The man looked at the barn, the smoke from the chimney, the shovel still stuck in last night's dirt pile. You think I won't shoot through a cradle? The Baron stepped forward. No, I think you will. That's why I already dug your hole. Guns came out, fast. Too fast for talk. The Baron dove to the side, the shotgun already firing from the hip. One rider screamed, then nothing. The second man stumbled backward, gut shot, hands clutching something. That used to work. Mira screamed from inside. The window shattered. A bullet ripped through the wall. The Baron rolled behind the trough, reloading with shaking hands. Another round slammed into the post near his head. Splinters bit into his face. He didn't flinch. Popped up, fired. Another rider down. One man remained. The leader. He stood calm. In the middle of the yard, blood on his sleeve, pistol out. You ain't gonna make it, he said. She ain't worth it. The Baron breathed through his teeth. She's mine now. The man laughed once. You really think you're some hero? You think raising a bastard and pretending it's redemption makes you less dead? The Baron fired. Missed. The man didn't. The shot hit him low, just above the hip. He staggered back, breath punched out of him like a kicked mule. Blood soaked his shirt. He dropped the shotgun. Fell to one knee. Mira screamed again. Hope wailed. The man walked forward, slow, smiling. She's gonna watch you die, he said. Then she's next. That baby's just a message. From the ground, the Baron pulled a second pistol. The man's smile faded. You son of a... He didn't finish. The Baron shot him in the throat. He dropped like a sack of guilt, twitching. In the dust, no words, just gurgles. Silence came back slow. The wind picked up. The hawk returned, circling overhead once before landing on the barn roof. Mira ran out, blood on her dress, eyes wide with something old and buried. You're hit, she said, falling to her knees beside him. I've been worse, he muttered. She pressed her hands to the wound. He winced. Hope cried louder now, stronger. He coughed. First time she sounded like a fighter. Mira smiled through tears. She is. He looked at her. Really looked. So are you. They sat in the dirt, blood soaking the ground. Smoke rising from the fireplace. And around them, the world felt still, alive. He passed out before the sun hit the ridge, and still, Hope cried. Smoke rose like a prayer, slow and silent, curling through the rafters of the barn before anyone saw the fire. Mira's scream came first, sharp enough to wake the baby before the heat did. She burst through the cabin door barefoot, the wind catching. Her skirt, eyes wild, searching. The Baron was already running. Flames licked out of the east side of the barn, climbing the dry boards with hungry speed. The air cracked with heat. The hay caught fast, brittle and sun-dried. Somewhere inside, the animals kicked against the stalls. He didn't hesitate. He disappeared into the fire. She shouted his name, but the wind took it. Inside, the smoke was thick, hot enough to blister. The Baron moved low, coughing hard, throwing open latches one by one. The mule burst out into the night, blind and scared. The chickens flapped in chaos. He kicked open the far stall. Mira. She was there, but unconscious. Not Mira. She was in the cabin. This was someone else. Small, wrong, wrapped in cloth like a sack. It was the baby. Hope. Hope was in the barn. He grabbed her, wrapped her in his shirt, and ran through fire that peeled paint off the walls. The heat clawed at his skin. But he didn't stop. Outside, Mira screamed again. He stumbled through the smoke, holding the child against his chest. She took Hope from his arms, sobbing, checking her for burns, for breath, for sound. "She's okay," she said over and over, as if saying it could make it so. He collapsed onto the dirt, coughing black. The barn groaned behind them. The roof fell in with a crash. Then, hoofbeats, not one, not two, a group. She looked up. The Baron tried to sit. Couldn't. He grabbed the shotgun beside him. Blood ran from his hand. 6 riders came over the ridge, faces hard, guns drawn. The man in front wore grey, the same suit as the first one, but older. Worn thinner by ambition, he didn't smile. He dismounted slow, boots clean. "Told them not to trust the first group," he said. "Too eager, too loud. Guess they were useful anyway. Drew out your cards." Mira stood up, baby in one arm, rifle in the other. "Stay where you are," the man said. "You know what she is." The Baron tried to stand. The pain knocked him down. The man walked forward, calm as scripture. "You can't protect her," he said. "That child doesn't belong here. She's a debt, a message, and we don't leave messages behind." Hope whimpered. Mira stepped back. The man raised his gun. Then the hawk screamed. It cut across the sky, diving low, a blur of feather and fury. The gunman flinched, fired once into the air. The Baron used the moment. He rolled forward, grabbed the fallen pistol from the first body, still warm in the dirt, and fired from his back. The shot hit the man's side. Not fatal, but enough. Chaos broke. Mira fired next, the bullet cracking into the shoulder of another rider. The rest scattered, half dismounting, half shooting blind. Horses screamed. The Baron crawled toward the cabin, one arm useless, one eye bloodied. Mira ran, child in hand, ducking behind the water trough. The man in grey rose to his knees, gritting his teeth. Blood soaked his side. "You think this changes anything?" he shouted. "She belongs to us." Hope began to cry. Loud, furious, alive. Mira raised her rifle again. "She belongs to no one." The man lifted his weapon. She fired. The bullet hit just below his throat. He fell forward, hands twitching, face in the dust. The other riders hesitated. 2 ran. 1 raised his hands. The Baron groaned, dragging himself upright using the porch rail. Mira didn't look at him. She was already checking the child. Hope reached for her cheek with sticky, ash-covered fingers. "I'm here," she whispered. "I'm here. You're safe." The Baron coughed hard, spit blood, but didn't fall. The wind had changed. The barn still smoked. Bodies littered the yard. The sun began to rise. He limped forward, step by step, until he was close enough to see Mira's face. "You all right?" She nodded. He sat down beside her, legs giving out. "I thought I lost her," she said. He looked at the child. Still breathing, still crying. "She's louder than before," he said. "She's not scared anymore." He stared out across the dirt. "Neither are you." She leaned her head on his shoulder, blood soaking both their sleeves. "I should have run sooner," she said. "You ran far enough." They sat like that as the sun climbed higher. Neither spoke. Neither needed to. By midday, Mira dug the graves. The Baron helped. One arm useless, but the other steady. They didn't mark the stones, just laid them side by side. Let the wind do the rest. That night, Mira tucked Hope into the cot and sat by the fire. The Baron poured them both a drink. It burned like something old and necessary. "You still think I ain't worth dying for?" she asked. He didn't answer right away, just looked at her. "You're the reason I'm still breathing," he said. She held his gaze. "That baby changed everything," she said. He nodded. "She made you fight." "No," he said. "You did." Outside, the hawk circled again. Alone, now. Watching. The flames cracked. The child stirred, and for the first time in weeks, the house felt like it belonged to the living. The shovel bit into the earth with the weight of quiet anger. The ground was dry, hard-packed, but the Baron didn't slow. Every heave was steady, deliberate. Mira watched from the porch, her arm around the child who no longer cried when the wind shifted. They buried the last man behind the barn where the smoke still clung to the rafters like old guilt. No prayers, just dirt and silence. By the time the sun tipped west, the graves were leveled and the markers were nothing more than uncarved stone. The Baron washed blood from his hands at the pump. Mira brought him a rag. He didn't thank her and she didn't need it. Their words had changed. Fewer now, heavier. Hope reached for his face that evening, her little fingers brushing the cut near his eye. He winced, but didn't pull away. She laughed, clear, loud, like none of the screams from before had ever happened. Mira stood in the doorway holding a rifle with the same calm a woman might hold a basket of eggs. Her eyes weren't looking for danger anymore. They were making sure it stayed gone. That night, the wind brought quiet instead of threat. Coyotes sang in the distance, the kind of music the land used when it wanted to remember things without saying them out loud. Mira sat cross-legged on the floor, carving small wooden figures. One looked like a hawk, another a child. The Baron sat near the hearth, cleaning the last revolver, not out of fear, out of ritual. "I never asked what you did before," she said, voice low. "I let people take things they shouldn't have," he replied. "And now?" He looked at her, then at the baby dozing with a fist curled tight against her cheek. "Now I keep things that matter," she nodded. "You think they'll send more?" "Maybe. And when they do, we'll be ready sooner." The next morning, the sheriff came alone, hat in hand. His horse looked nervous, nostrils flaring as he stepped over the blood-stained dirt. The Baron met him halfway down the path. "Cleaned up, I see," the sheriff said. "Mostly. You want to explain?" "No." The sheriff scratched his jaw. "Men from the rail. Lawyers showed up in town yesterday asking about land, water rights, that kind of thing. Said they sent a team out this way. No one's heard back." "Maybe." They got turned around. The sheriff didn't smile. "Maybe." They stood in silence. The sheriff looked toward the hill. "She's still here?" "She's my wife." He didn't push it, just nodded once. "You're not in the clear, you know, but I don't see no reason to dig holes that don't need digging." The Baron said nothing. The sheriff tipped his hat and turned back toward the road. As his horse trotted off, Mira appeared in the doorway, rifle lowered, eyes steady. "You trust him?" she asked. "No." "Will he come back?" "Only if someone louder tells him to." She didn't reply. She didn't have to. The days turned longer. The child laughed more. Her grip grew stronger. Her eyes followed the hawk in the sky like it was telling her secrets. Mira started carving signs, not just toys. One hung over the porch, burned into the wood with a hot nail. "Hope rides here." The Baron didn't say anything when he saw it. He just nodded, then built her a bench to sit under it. Word reached the edge of the county that the rail bosses had pulled back. One too many missing men, one too many buried secrets. The sheriff stopped visiting. The neighbors stopped whispering. The grave markers behind the barn faded under dust and weeds. The hawk still came around, perched high, watching. Hope took her first steps near the old trough, fell hard, scraped her knees and cried like the world had ended. Mira scooped her up, held her close and said, "You're fine. Get up." She did. One night, Mira asked, "Do you still see her?" The Baron didn't pretend not to understand. "Sometimes," he said, "mostly in firelight." She was kind. She was quiet, but she didn't flinch when men tried to make her small. Mira nodded. "I think she'd hate me." "No," he said, "she'd have fought beside you." The baby stirred. Mira looked down at her, wrapped in blankets that smelled like cedar and ash. She'll never know who her father was. She'll know who raised her. She'll ask one day. When she does, he said, you tell her she was born screaming into the hands of men who would have broken kingdoms for her silence, and that they failed. That too, Mira smiled without joy. She's gonna be more than this place. He looked out across the land. Maybe, but this land will remember her. By the time autumn whispered in, the grass had grown back around the graves. Hope learned to speak small words. Ma, da, bird. She pointed to the hawk every morning as if it belonged to her. The Baron didn't limp anymore. The scar near his ribs pulled when he laughed, which wasn't often, but sometimes. Mira worked the field like it owed her something. Sweat on her brow, hands in the soil, voice humming low. Hope followed behind her, toddling on legs that wanted to run, but hadn't learned how to yet. One night, the Baron sat on the porch watching them, Mira braiding her hair. Hope curled beside her. He poured himself a glass of something sharp. Never thought I'd see this far ahead, he said. Mira didn't look up. You did more than see it. You built it. Hope reached for his boot, tugging at the laces. He picked her up with one arm, held her against his chest. She smiled up at him. She has your eyes, Mira said. She has your fight. Behind them, the house stood quiet. The fire still crackled. The air held peace like it had finally learned to keep it. He looked out across the land again, this time not for danger, but to remember. I lost everything once, he said. Mira leaned into his side. But not this time. He kissed the top of Hope's head. She laughed again. The hawk screamed once overhead, then vanished into the setting sun, and the dust, for once, stayed settled.